Good afternoon. I'm not going to let you guys stand in the rain for too long because some of you are prepared, some of you aren't. I see the one in shorts there. You're tougher than I am because I'm sorry. Right now, I'd like to be in that tent with a wood stove staying warm. Anyways, my name's Doug Moisey. I'm with DuPont Pioneer. I'm the agronomist for Northern Alberta, and you're kind of wondering, like, what's the guy in Northern Alberta teaching you guys about corn? Well, I said the same thing when I joined DuPont Pioneer here a couple of years ago when I left canola. But it is an interesting crop. It's an exciting crop. But being that, looking at most of you guys, you're just young in the industry, and I made a comment the other day that I wish I was 25 again with all the new things that are coming. But I think one of the things is that what I'm trying to do here to you guys today, we're going to talk herbicides, and the reason is that for anybody that's growing corn for the first time or dealing with corn, we want your very first experience, or if you're dealing with customers, to have the best experience possible when they're dealing with corn and not dealing with the pitfalls. So what I will start off with is that how many guys or how many people here have experienced corn? Growing up, walked through it, played with it? 1, 2, 3, a little bit, okay, a little bit, okay. So I gotta say one thing about corn. Corn is very sensitive to weeds. It is, well, you know, I don't want to use the wrong term, but I'm just gonna say that it is very sensitive to weeds. And one of the things is it's also very sensitive to spatial area. It doesn't like to be too close to anything. So when you take a look at corn, and you're gonna learn later on in the next couple of modules about planting rates, depth, and all that, corn is like a brother and sister combination. They like each other, but they don't want to be too close to each other. They like that spatial. But with weeds, they especially don't like, they just don't want it. And the reason being is that weeds are big competition. So what we've done here is we've looked at a number of herbicides. Some of them are registered. Some people are playing and toying with. But one of the things is that there are some pitfalls to playing and toying with the wrong herbicides. And so, but to start off with, we wanted to show you basically a dirty crop that hasn't been sprayed. This is the kind of weeds that you normally see in a field. You got anything from wormwood to hemp nettle to stink weeds to shepherd's purse. The problem that comes with corn is that corn, because it does not like competition till it grows, basically covers ground. It's not a great fierce competitor. This kind of weed, you're probably looking at anywhere from 10 to 20% yield loss if you're controlling them at this stage. For the guys that are growing silage, that are trying for maybe that first time for 15 tons an acre, 10% to 15%, that's a couple of tons an acre. And for a dairy guy, that's a lot of money because basically starch is milk. When it's the beef guy, starch is weight gain, it's conditioning for their calves. For a grain producer that's gonna be trying something for grain corn, you know, when you're targeting that 120 to 140 bushels an acre, 20% could be as much as 20 bushels an acre. So when you start looking at $5 a bushel, that's $100. So we wanted to show you is that when you've got weedy patches like this, you're gonna see yield loss. But the other thing is you can start to see it even more prolific now is that if you take a look as we've sprayed, you're actually seeing that the corn crop is actually bigger robust leaves. It's a little bit taller. It's actually competing, it's not competing with anything, so they're actually doing better. So what we showed here is in this next one is that we're looking at 2 applications at the correct timing of for the corn with the Roundup. But what you can see here is what's the problem that we're seeing this right now with this Roundup Ready canola, and that seems to be a bigger sticking point, especially as you go into the newer corn growing areas. Guys are usually following up with corn either after canola or within a couple years of canola being on the ground, and so Roundup Ready volunteers can be a problem for them. Now, in your minds, is that costing yield? Even though the rest of the field's clean, you're not seeing any other weeds, but we're still seeing canola. Are we worried still? Show of hands, say yes. Good. Anybody say no? Okay. Surprisingly enough, even these lighter rate populations, yes, you are losing yield. And so it's critical. But what we've done here is we've done only 2 applications of Roundup. And so guys are starting to say, well, what can I do? So we wanted to show you a little bit farther down here. What they've done here is that they missed the first application and came back in at the second timing, and they sprayed it on the second time. So we're seeing a little less weeds, but we're seeing these big plants here. And these big plants are competing against this corn. And so, although to me visually, I see it a little bit, but you can see here how some of these plants where they haven't had much competition are a little bit bigger. These guys right beside it are a little bit smaller, just a hair. The leaves are not quite as big, but that's how much that canola plant has actually been affecting that corn crop. Again, very sensitive to weed pressures. When we look here, basically the 1.5 liter equivalencies. And that's what the Blue Book, we're following Blue Book rates, okay? So here what we've done, we did our first application, and you can see how, as it consistently, how much better this crop is overall compared to over there starting. Because we got that first, we were keeping our fields weed free. Yes, we have some escapes, but we got rid of that competition early, which is giving corn that nice big advantage. However, again, we're still not seeing what we like to see. So another one we've looked at is just to show you at the high rate, we're not seeing much difference at all, but we've gone one application at the high rate, we're getting our controls, but again, because we've left it, we're actually seeing that competition again happening and causing us problems. So, as agronomists, future agronomists, farmers in the crowd, what's typically what people consider to be a registered rescue treatment according to the Blue Book here in Alberta to control volunteer canola? Or what will guys throw into the tank to control volunteer canola? Bromoxynil 2,4-D, perfect. 10 cents for that winner. The problem that comes with 2,4-D is 2,4-D is a phenoxy. It is a hormonal chemical, but it has its pitfalls. Yes, it controls volunteer Roundup, or Roundup Ready canola, but we wanted to show you two root systems. Can anyone here determine which is the one that had 2,4-D, which is the one that didn't? The one on the left, or one on your left? That's right. This is a telltale symptom. You see your brace roots, and for the people in southern Alberta, brace roots are very important for corn because it helps keep that crop upright. They're the roots that show up later that actually go up a little bit on the first or second node. The root system actually goes out and you can actually see them out on the crop. But what happens is you get this malformation. But probably the most critical thing is that you get this pinching off of your main root system, which is this. This is where 80 to 90% of your nutrients, your water is taken up. So if you've actually gotten rid of this, you're losing a lot of yield because of this. But a typical symptom of 2,4-D is what they call brittle snap. And so when you see brittle snap or 2,4-D or MCPA applications, you'll actually see corn lean. And so yesterday, which was very nice, we were taking leaning corn, and you do this. In a normal corn plant that hasn't been sprayed with 2,4-D with that same kicking motion, see what happens? And this is what we call brittle snap. And this is the pitfalls of using 2,4-D or an MCPA amine. If you get a heavy windstorm within a couple of days after raining or after the application, this can tip over, it can snap over on you, and this is the biggest problem. This is restricting yield, will cause yield. Eventually over time it can help, it will grow out of it, but you're going to be dealing with this issue here. So this is where 2,4-D can be a major problem. Now, one thing we don't want to confuse it with is they have what they call rapid growth syndrome, which seems to occur a lot down here, I've been told. And that's where plants will rapidly grow, they will lean over, and it's just because of the rapid growth, the plant is not properly building cell walls, but within 3 to 4 days, it usually grows out of it. So, this is 2,4-D at a third rate. That's how, this is how critical, and this is why we're so worried. In the Alberta Blue Book, 2,4-D is a registered herbicide for corn, and we're trying to get this across to people. This is not good news. So, this is at a third rate.
Is this like breakdown in the herbicide resistance in the canola then? The higher rate?
I don't know. It could be, this could be something else that's going on. That typically is not Roundup damage. Look at that whitening. It almost like there's a little bit of a bleaching, or maybe even Liberty could be, but
it's a really high rate of that.
yeah, what we could be seeing is some surfactant burn, but that's typically not surfactant burn. Like, I think there's something else that's going on that's causing that whitening. Now, I have seen in canola that's been double sprayed where you have overlap in a very stressful year, the overlap will actually turn white and then it'll grow out of it. So you can see some of that happen. So 2,4-D, great job. It's getting rid of all our volunteer canola. So some guys will go to Brittle M. For the chemical people in the crowd, what's Brittle M made of? Okay, yeah, that's right. Now, and we're seeing this again. And so you can see here we've got the bending going on. And again, we've got the brittle snap happening. So MCPA can cause. Now, One thing that has been suggested is that Bactral M could be used in a rescue treatment. Some people will look at for early volunteer flushing when they're having multiple flushes of volunteer canola. They may go with Bactral M first. The problem is the MCPA can create this problem, and this is where always is a concern is. So Bactral M, although it controls the volunteer canolas quite well, the MCPA component is what's going to give you the grief. So when we go down here, this is another one that's been bantied about, Duyvil DSP. What's Duyvil DSP? Mecaprop and? Huh? 2,4-D. So guys have gone in with Duyvil DSP, and you can see here we've got the same issues going on. This was sprayed last Saturday. Huh? Friday. Okay, so we're at 6-7 days. Well, but still, it's the 2,4-D component. So, you know, well, no, we are saying no 2,4-D for corn. We've got to figure out other ways of controlling. So, one of the ones is now being pursued. This is a group 27. This is called Impact. Right now, it is registered for controlling of wild and volunteer mustard. Canola is in the mustard family, so this is why they're looking at it. It is being pursued on the label. As an agronomist, I cannot recommend, but this is something that we have to be aware of. This is now available on the market, a new tool for some guys. So what Impact is a group 27. The cropping restrictions is you cannot follow up with canola the following year, but you can see here how the canola, the shepherd's purse, stinkweed, everything's getting smoked. And so what guys are looking at here is a potential tank mix of Roundup with the Impact. It seems to enhance the impact. We also have BASF's product, which is Amazon, which is a new registration. It is the same group and family. So we are trying to figure out where this is, and then we are looking is that from aspect is that these companies are pursuing registration for volunteer canola for corn in Western Canada. So this has some real good things. Now, what are some other chemicals that theoretically we could use if we had it available to us at our on hand that you could control volunteer canola? Partner, yes. Okay, but partner, there is some issues with it. Partner can be a leaf restriction, is that they typically say 4 to 6, the V4 stage right up to V8. The problem can be is that you can get surfactant burn, where some guys, what they've done here is they've actually gone in early when there's minimal leaf area with their partner. And then that they control their volunteer canola. But we also have Basagran. Basagran's another one. So, and Basagran, although because everybody is trying to make their own cocktails this year, Basagran and all the pulse acres in short supply, guys are scrambling to try to find Basagran. Basagran isn't expensive. It's about 15 bucks an acre, but it is a really good for controlling volunteer canola. So you've got those options available to you. But what we're just trying to show you is that there is new herbicides on the way. As more corn acres start going into Western Canada, you're probably going to start seeing more chemicals come available. Some guys have talked about pre-pass. Pre-pass is not a good idea. Florazolam, Dow Agro will not recommend it. What we'll tell you is that guys have been trying it. And the problem that you do have with using something like that, great for controlling volunteer canola, but will stop your silking on your corn. And so you could end up with 8 or 9 feet tall grass, which is not what you want. So it's very critical is that when you're looking at any type of herbicide to control in corn, you have to be very cognizant of what downstream effects might be. At this stage, when we're looking at our corn right now, the number of rows around the cob is being determined as we speak. So you add any little stress, rather than having 14 or 16 rows or 12 rows, you might be 8, 9. And when we're looking at yield for silage, we're looking at starch, and so we want maximum number of rows and maximum number of kernels per row. A little later on at about the V8, V9, we've got kernels, the current number of kernels per row are going to be determined. But at this stage, we're looking at number of rows, which is very critical for when it comes to this whole grain production / silage production. So in essence, to get you guys out of the rain, I've shortened it up quite a bit, but is there any other questions?
So when you say V8, V9, are you referring to the leaves?
Yes, so you're going to learn a little bit at your next station, but we're talking about visual leaf collars. But V9 means is that we have 9 stages. So we have a thumb leaf that comes out, we call V1. And then we count the number of collars, and that gives you the staging. One of the other things that you have to look at too is if when you look at herbicides, they will say 14 to 16 inch tall corn or up to V4 stage. or they will say V4 to V6. So it's gonna be critical for you guys to learn your staging and how to stage it properly. So, and you guys are all getting soaking wet, but I'm dry. What this is actually, okay, so I should have brought the thing. I just pulled off the thumb leaf, but this is the first true leaf. The thumb leaf I've lost, so that's V1. This is V2. This is the visual color. This is visual V3. This is V4. And this is V5. So that's 5. These are still leaves. The actual, what you're seeing here, you're not seeing any stalk. You're actually just seeing the leaves. The stalk is still below the ground at this stage. So this is all, and so when you see a visual leaf color, like this is right here, that you consider then an open, so you call that a V stage. It's now moved up. So this is a V5 plant. And so that's what we're saying, is that's what we have to understand. But one thing a lot of people forget is that the thumb leaf, which here's a good picture of one right down here if you guys want to get closer. But here's a thumb leaf right here. It's rounded, and then you got your pointed leaves here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's still a V5, even though it's at quite high. This is going to be critical because right now at this time, our rows are being determined. Our growing point is now coming above the ground because it's now been below the ground up until this stage. Now it's above the ground. So that's all I got to say. Any other questions? So, but anyway, so there's what we have. There are registered products out there, but be very careful. Like I said, Impact here is not fully registered for volunteer canola. It is on the mustards, but I do know that they're actively pursuing it for canola on Western Canada. So this is a a tool that's going to be available for you guys next year to recommend to your customers. That's it. Hey, enjoy the rest of the rain.